What's going on, everyone? So we have talked a lot about just the versatility, the depth, the size, all the different possible lineups and different just configurations that you can throw out there on the basketball court. It's a beautiful thing. I have talked heavily this offseason about, hey, run different looks, run different sets. Let's see what, a Hayes, Prince, Rui, Christie, and Gabe unit looks like, right? What does a LeBron, like a positionless unit look like with, like, say, LeBron, Prince, Vando, Rui, and AD or something, right? Like, let's get a little weird. You have so much versatility. You have several guys that could shoot the basketball, several guys that can defend at multiple positions, several guys that can play multiple positions. You could go in all 6'8" lineup. You could go, Darvin Ham has talked about running guards. And I know people lose their minds and freak out anytime, which I understand you have some PTSD from last season, but there's a big difference between a bunch of 6-foot guards and a bunch of 6'5" guards, or 6'5" and above guards, right? Like, that's a huge difference. And he's not going to be running that against these more sizable teams. Like, you're not probably doing that against Toronto, but you do it against a team like the Warriors, right? If they're going Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, then yeah, you can go. It does make sense to go like Gabe Vincent, D'Lo, Reeves, Jared Vanderbilt, something like that, right? Like, that does make sense. But it's the options and the flexibility. It's basically being able to match your units based on the opposing team's unit. So, again, if you're playing, say, a Minnesota, maybe you go with like a Jackson Hayes and an Anthony Davis to start the game. Or maybe you go with like Rui in the starting lineup because Rui had so much success against Karl Anthony Towns last season. It made things very difficult for him, right? So maybe you match it up that way. But, again, if you're playing the Warriors, maybe you start Gabe Vincent in that lineup, right? Or say you're playing, Boston, maybe you go a little more sizable wing heavy. Maybe you move Reeves to the point and go like Prince with Vando, LeBron, and AD, right? So that way you kind of match up better with some of these guys. That's what I love about this roster. And Darvin Ham, he's going to have his work cut out for him. He's going to have to figure all this out. He's going to have to figure out how to get his rotation locked in. You have all preseason, and that's where you go and experiment, right? Preseason basketball is here. Lakers basketball is officially here. I'm pumped and excited for it. I cannot wait. Bringing back the live streams and all that stuff. We'll be doing the watch-along stream and then the post-game stream and all that stuff over on As Stands Lakers. So, I'm excited and pumped for that. And just to see how Darvin Ham kind of navigates all this, right? You have a lot of egos that seem bought in, right? Media day, everyone said all the right stuff, but it's another thing to actually show it. And Darvin Ham's going to have to manage all of these things as well as, really carve out this rotation, especially come playoff time. And we got some news, we got some insight as to kind of what Darvin Ham or what is expected from Darvin Ham going into this season as far as this roster goes. So Darvin's plan, at least, and it could prove to be complicated because we know how most NBA teams, they like to hear from their head coach a regiment rotation sooner rather than later. But Darvin's plan is to use the preseason and in the season to have different look lineups. McMinnon said on Wednesday's episode of Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective podcast. So, again, this is something that I have preached and talked about repeatedly, especially early on in the season. That's your time, like pre-trade deadline. That's your time to experiment. That's your time to run different sets, different looks. I mean, obviously you want to win as many games as possible. And if a lineup isn't working, you need to be able to pull the cord ASAP, right? I'm pretty confident that, we know 4 of the 5 starters. We know it's D'Lo, Reeves, LeBron, and AD. I personally think Jared Vanderbilt's going to end up being the guy that is that, because I really think just everything we've heard Darvin Ham talk about the continuity, everything that everybody has talked about just leads me to believe it's Jared Vanderbilt. I also think it's the best position There's talks about Taurean Prince, which I actually think makes a lot of sense also. If you're not going to go with Jared Vanderbilt, go with Prince. I don't like the idea of Rui Hachimura on the starting unit. I know a lot of people do. He's not good at defending perimeter players. He's good at defending the Aaron Gordons, not the Mikal Bridges. He's good at even defending the Karl Anthony Towns or the Jokic's of the world, right? Because he's got good size, strength, lower center of gravity. He's a guy that is great in that regard, but you don't want to put LeBron at 3. It's the last thing you want. I mean, how many times do we see him fail to close out on just shooters and stuff, playing the 4 spot and just kind of play that free safety spot rather than like locking in defensively, right? He can. We've seen him do it in spots and in moments, but over the course of an 82 game season or however many games he plays, 65, I think at least, because he's going to want the accolades. I just don't see him just going all out and just locking in defensively, game in and game out for 30 minutes or 35 minutes, however many minutes he plays a game. Right, so you need Jared Vanderbilt in that lineup. And Rui Hachimura, him just being a corner spot-up three-point shooter all game, doesn't make any sense. Use Jared Vanderbilt. Use Taurean Prince if you don't want to use Jared Vanderbilt. But outside of that, outside of the starting unit, and the first 5 to 7 minutes, however long you play the starters, let's get a little weird, right? Let's change some stuff up. Let's throw out some crazy lineups, right? Darvin Ham's got to be willing and okay with, pulling the plug early though, right? You don't want to have a unit out there that's just really struggling poorly and you're starting to the game's just getting away from you. And it's like, well, we want to keep it in it. Like, you still want to try to win the games. But that doesn't mean you can't go back to that unit at some point, right? So if it was me, for example, and let's say we're throwing out some unit of, let's say we throw out like Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Rui Hachimura, Christian Wood, and Max Christie, something like that, right? Let's say it's a unit like that, right? Throw that out there, see how it looks. Give it 5 minutes or so, right? If it's great, maybe push a little longer. Like, what if you're down 5 and then all of a sudden quarter ends and with that unit and you're up 5? It's like, okay, well, let's leave it in there to start the third quarter or whatever, right? Or to start the fourth quarter or whatever, right? Cool. Like, get a good look, see how that looks. And then it's like, okay, now we know, let's try it the next game. But if it doesn't work, right? Let's say you have a 5-point lead and by the time the quarter's over, that 5 minutes that they're all in, you're down 5, right? Well then, okay, didn't work this time. We'll try it again next game, but let's get this ship right? Let's go win this game. Because again, you need sample sizes. You're not going to because it was the unit just terrible, or was it just guys weren't hitting shots, but they were good defensively, right? Like, you need that evaluation. And, preseason, you only get a handful of games, so you only get so many games to really kind of look at things, right? Now, LeBron James, and I don't think Anthony Davis and Austin Reeves, just because the Lakers seemed really like trying to keep Reeves fresh and just kind of resting right now until get closer to the season. I don't think the main guys play until like the last game or two. So mix it up, mix and match a little bit. Let's go wild here, right? Like, give some of these guys some run, right? Like, we've heard, Max Christie, Cam Reddish, Gabe Vincent, all of these guys, Christian Wood, even on the defensive side, right? But he's going to play a bigger role regardless. But we've heard several of these guys being real standouts and surprising everyone so far in training camp, right? But training camp is training camp. It's a little more real, right? The intensity is a little higher. Even in preseason, it's still preseason, so it's not, a playoff environment or playoff atmosphere, but it's still, the stakes are raised a bit when you're talking about, a preseason game more than like just practice or training camp, right? So let's see if those guys, like, how do they look? Because what if Gabe Vincent goes out there and he's just rough, right? And it is an adjustment period for him being on this team. What if Cam Reddish or Max Christie aren't thriving the way that they were in training camp, or Max Christie isn't looking like how he did in summer league, and that is it just a bad game? Okay, well, let's play him another, right? Like, you need to work out the kinks now while you can. You have the opportunity to kind of figure things out, work these things out, and I just think that that's the best approach, because once you get post trade deadline, that's when it's time to really start, flushing out your playoff rotation, right? Really getting them locked in, focused, ready to go. Start fighting and positioning yourself seeding wise, so that way you can get your spot locked up for standings, all of that. That's what it's about. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you think that's the best approach? Yeah, like mix and match. Let's throw out different lineups, different looks, and see how it looks. Do you think no, have locked in stability? However you feel. Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.